Hey everybody, this is Nancy with the summer weekday batch. Oof, wow, this is like the homework from hell, right? It's very complex. You have to build on what you know before, so it's really a challenge. I am not done by any stretch of the imagination. I finished with section 1, and then I went and answered all the questions on section 4, which is basically Googling and then copying down basically what Google says, because I have no idea what most of that stuff is, and I don't have time to look right now. So I got that out of the way. And then what I did is I found websites and I built basic scripts for parts 2 and 3. Part 2 is the data tables and part 3 is the Excel. Or actually, no, part 2 is the Excel and part 3 is the data table. And that actually was confusing me because we were presented with data tables before we were presented with Excel, but it's on the homework the other way around, which is no big deal. So I'm doing the Excel, and I just want to show you how far I've gotten and what I did to get where I got. Most of what I have gotten now is not creative at all, and it's pretty much just slavishly following along the lecture from Wednesday, which is up on the forum if you don't want to listen to the echoey garbage from the one that I recorded. So let's just start at the top and work our way down. Alright, with every file we're going to start with option explicit and the usual system util close process by name, iexplore.exe, to make sure any windows are closed, and iexplore.exe and our website. I have not been parameterizing these and saying, this is my browser, blah, 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 just because I've got enough stuff down here, I don't want to mess with it. So then we have to declare all our variables. This is my browser. Remember, we get tired of writing mid-class, browser, mid-class browser, creation time, title, page, mid-class page, creation time, title. We got tired of writing that, so we did set my browser to equal all this mess, but we have to declare it up here. So we did. And that means down here, when we're actually grabbing our stuff from Object-SPY, we just write my browser instead of browser, mid-class browser, creation, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean. Okay, hopefully you know that by now. If you don't know that by now, that's something you need to know by now. So we declared that, and then I declared all of my variables for the stuff that I grabbed in Object-SPY, which is basic stuff. And also, we had to follow the example. I printed out Jay's notes on Excel and data tables and all that stuff, so I was able literally to just copy it down off of the page. So in order to create a connection between UFT and Excel, we have to do set my Excel. You can call this Bob's your uncle, it doesn't matter. You noticed on his sheets he would spell it my Excel one time and MXL another time, doesn't matter. As long as you are consistent and what you put here is exactly the same as what you dim up here. Why not go with what works? My Excel equals create object, Excel.application. Then I already created a data table and put data in it separately before I even started putting all this stuff in here. So I didn't have to create a workbook, I just opened what I have. In order to find the path, all you do is open this up here and you hold down the shift key and then you right click and then you copy as path. And since I know I was going to be working with this a lot, I just kind of saved that in a little document on the top of my desk. So hold down the shift key, right click on the file, and then select copy as path. Okay, that's not what we want. That is what we want. So that's how I got this path, and make sure that you're doing everything correctly. myexcel.workbooks.open and then quotation marks, then your path and close quotation marks. My Excel application visible? Yes, I do want it to be visible, so we say true. And now I have to tell it what sheet, and I renamed it, so I said my sheet equals myexcel.activeworkbook.worksheets, because we now have opened that one workbook and there are many worksheets, and I renamed sheet 1 to test data, so I have it in here as test data. All this stuff here is just, almost copy and paste. You just do it slavishly according to what Jay told us. The only thing you have to know is the path for your Excel file. Then we are going to have to get a row count from that Excel sheet, and you might put things in a slightly different place than I do, so don't worry about if it's not exact. For some things it's very important, for some things it is not. I said my row count, which I declared up here, row count, equals mysheet.usedrange.rows.count. So I know when I get my Excel sheet open, that means it's going to count all of the rows that I have and not all the million extra ones that are empty. Okay? And then we wanted, this is where I did the set browser, where I took that long class and page name and changed it to my browser so I can use it down here. And then on my particular website that I'm using, I wanted to make sure that the clicking on the add a row box was outside the loop, because otherwise it'll mess me up. For instance, we're doing iterations. So if I go through this 5 times, the first time, undid it. Okay, so the first time we only have 1 row. If I go put everything in here and then click add row, then it's going to add 1 row. And then it's going to click everything and add 1 row. Every time until I have 5 rows. Well, guess what? I only am using 3 sets of data here. I'm not even using 4 and 5, but every time I tell it to add 2 rows, I'm going to end up with 10 rows. It will get hung up here on 4 and my script will fail. For that reason, I want the opening of rows to be outside of my loop. And I did that on my previous also. So if you remember the previous video, you should see that also. So I just said, okay, we're going to click that button twice, but only twice throughout the whole script, and then it's never going to happen again. And then now I start on my iterations. Now remember, we are using an Excel sheet. So this basically says we're going to start, and our iteration is going to be starting from row 2 and include all of our row count that we set up here. So in other words, it's only going to count where we have data. Let me go ahead and open that so you can take a look at it. And the reason we say for I equals 2 instead of I equals 1, we are not starting on row 1 because row 1 holds, 1A holds our headliners right here, right? Whereas on data tables, which we'll be using in part 3, our data table names are not part of the table itself. But here, the column names are part of our data. So we cannot use 1 because then you'll get total budget instead of 1,000 as your first thing, and it will mess everything up. So we're starting with 2. And then I'm going to pull everything off of these rows, which is very simple: B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M. So I want to do that, and then it's going to keep moving on down the rows. So I told it for my total budget, and you're gonna have to be very careful how you spell things, because you're gonna be having it in 4 different places. Cut and paste is your friend. You have to declare it, total budget. You have to set a value for it, total budget. You have to tell your web page what to put in there, total budget. And it doesn't matter, you can spell it differently here, but I like to keep it all the same just for consistency's sake. But you're not going to mess anything up if you spell it differently here. But on your script page, you need to make sure everything is spelled correctly. So as we move down all of my variables, it's a really simple formula. Cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. Just follow, literally have Jay's video on in the background as you are working on this, and then find out what you need from him, and then hit pause, and then go back and do it, and then click again, and then hit pause. Go back and forth and you do it. So the total budget, we want to pull information from Excel. So that's what we're telling to do. Saying go to my sheet, which is this work right here, and test data, and from A, pull that value here and stick it under here for total budget. Why I? Because if we just told it 2, it would only do row 2. If we just told it to pick 2A, it would only run this line. But we're telling it I, and I means we're going to iterate through. It's going to do row 2, then row 3, then row 4, then row 5, all the way through to all the rows that we have. That's syntax, that's formula. Stick it in there, don't think about it. So we put I, comma, And you can use numbers here too, but I find it's easier to identify by the letter of the column because I don't have to count or guess. But if you're going to use a letter, make sure you put it inside quotation marks. Make sure everything there, those two items are inside parentheses and dot value. So you are telling it for total budget, you're going to go to the Excel sheet and you're going to go first from row 2A and stick the value, 2A, stick the value, 2A, stick the value until you've gone all the way through the script here. And then you come to next, forget all this commented out stuff here because I'm still working on it. Then it's going to go right back up here. And then it's going to come down and it's going to make this I now 3. And it's going to keep doing it through all of your iterations. Now remember, on the first part, we wanted it to loop 5 times. So we did I equals 1 to 5. We don't want that now. We start with 2 because row 1 is our column names. And then we are telling it iterate for as many columns as I have. Or excuse me, as many rows as I have. And I happen to have 8. I have 9 rows, but I have 8 rows with usable data for there. Now, as far as the Excel data, I just basically type this in. And obviously, since we're just practicing, I just chose numbers that were easy for me to remember. I have, what am I saying? Interest rates. And I just used the same interest rates for each column. I didn't have to change those. My total budget, I just increased it by 100. For my name of my loan, I just chose whatever I wanted to choose. And then loan name 1 has 8 different iterations. Loan name 2 has 8 different iterations. Loan name 3 has 8 different iterations. And as you'll see, I just use the numbers that seem reasonable to me at the time. Don't waste too much time on it as long as you know you're not using anything funky. And that's pretty much it. When I first got started, the very first thing I did before I added any of this stuff, except for option explicit and system util close process by name and system util.run. I do that first. And then I came here and started grabbing everything with object spy. And then I just left this blank or just stuck in a number, doesn't matter. So the first thing I did is I started with the very basics. I found the script, I created my script using object spy, and I ran it to make sure that it was working before I did any fancy stuff with it. And then I started adding in the Excel sheets, adding in the row count, adding in the iteration, and that sort of thing. And that's where I am right now. So I'm going to go ahead and close this Excel sheet, because if it doesn't close, it's not going to reopen correctly. I have the information here to close it when I'm done. I have it commented out right now because I'm still working on the program. And then we're going to run it. Now my hands are off the keyboard. And now it's doing the first iteration, second iteration, third iteration, fourth iteration, fifth iteration, I think. There we go. Oh well, obviously, oh yeah, because I have 9, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, and that's it. So if you'll see, when I'm finished here, the last things you're going to see is my account name. It's a sushi rolling class, flying school and ballet lessons. Don't ask. And if you come over here, ballet lessons, flying school, sushi rolling class. Okay? And then all my numbers, and then all my results. Now when I start doing, get object property, I'm going to be using something from down here, the results that I have after I click on the go button. But that gives you the idea of basically what I've done. View this. And I just think it's cool to look at all the stuff you have in here because it ran because of those lovely iterations. And that's it. That's where I am so far. I am not done because I still have a lot of the side work to do. But this is the basic when you're creating the script and you're doing it with an Excel sheet. It's not that much, it's not much more difficult than the first way, just doing it, you know, with your values inside here. It's actually quite repetitive because you're using this formula and just changing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. And just make sure your placement is correct. You know, Jay tells about logic. Logically, I have to have this up here. Logically, I had to have this up here so I didn't open up too many boxes. Just think about what you're doing, and then we will be fine. So I'm going to get back at it because I still have a fair amount of work to do. I'm going to try and get done today or tomorrow. So I just wanted to let you know that this is what I have so far. So you guys have fun. Bye-bye.